The light rain of Seattle created a grey veil over the city that October afternoon. Robert Harrison adjusted the rearview mirror of his black Porsche Cayenne while waiting for the green light at the corner of Pine Street. At 52 years old, he had built a real estate empire worth over $400 million. His name was on skyscrapers, in business magazines, at charity events where he smiled for photos next to politicians and celebrities. But at that moment, none of it mattered. His eyes fixed on a figure across the street, a thin young woman with brown hair tied in a messy ponytail, wearing a faded grey hoodie and ripped jeans. She was bent over public trash cans, rummaging through the contents with worn rubber gloves, separating aluminum cans and plastic bottles that she deposited in a rusty shopping cart. Robert's heart stopped. He knew that face. He knew those delicate movements, even covered by the dirt of the streets. He knew that slight tilt of her head when she concentrated. It was Emma, his daughter. The horn behind him exploded in an irritated sequence. The light was green. With trembling hands, Robert accelerated and turned at the first corner, parking abruptly in a handicapped spot. He didn't care. He jumped out of the car and ran back to the corner, his heart pounding against his ribs. Emma was still there, now kneeling beside an overflowing trash can, carefully pulling out a plastic bag full of crushed cans. Her fingers were dirty, her nails stained. She wore sneakers that had once been white, now almost unrecognizable. Robert felt bile rise in his throat. How had she reached this point? How did he not know? It had been 4 years since the divorce, 4 years since Emma had chosen to stay with her mother, refusing to speak to him after that last devastating argument. He had tried to make contact a few times at first, always through cold messages that she never answered. Eventually, he stopped trying. Pride, that damned pride, built a wall that now seemed insurmountable. And now she was there, picking through trash, surviving on the streets like a homeless person. Emma stood up, pulled the cart, and began walking down the sidewalk, stopping at each public trash can. Robert followed at a distance, hiding behind posts and parked cars like a thief. With each movement of hers, a piece of his heart shattered. When she turned a corner and disappeared into an alley, Robert leaned against a brick wall, breathing heavily, tears burning his eyes. What had he done? Robert returned to the car in a trance. His hands still trembled when he started the engine, but he couldn't leave. He stayed there, stopped, staring at the rearview mirror, as if he could still see Emma's reflection disappearing into that dirty alley. How had everything fallen apart so quickly? He closed his eyes and let the memory invade his mind. 4 years ago, the mansion in Medina, overlooking Lake Washington. Catherine's divorce had been brutal, not because of money, she never wanted anything from him, but because of the words that hung in the air like broken glass. You were never present, Robert. Not for me, not for Emma. You're a ghost who pays bills. Emma was 18 at the time. She was about to enter college. On the last night before she left home with her mother, Robert tried to have a conversation. It was disastrous. "Dad, do you know when my birthday is?" Emma had asked, her eyes red. He hesitated. "Of course I know. It's in June." "It's in March. You've forgotten for 18 years. Emma, I work to give you the best. That expensive college you're going to attend. Do you think it pays for itself? I would have preferred to have a father." The sentence hit him like a punch, but pride was stronger. "You don't understand how the world works. One day, you'll thank me." Emma grabbed her backpack and left. She didn't say goodbye. Since then, silence. Catherine also cut off contact, and Robert, immersed in business, pretended everything was fine. After all, he had meetings, contracts, international expansions. There was no time for family dramas. But now, seeing Emma picking through trash on the streets, all that armor of indifference crumbled. He picked up his phone and dialed a number. 3 rings. "Marcus, it's me. I need you to do some discreet work for me." Extremely discreet. Marcus Delane was the best private detective in the city. Ex-FBI, discreet as a shadow and expensive as a top-tier lawyer. They had worked together on corporate investigations in the past. "I'm listening." I need you to investigate someone. My daughter. There was a pause. Your daughter? Robert, what happened? Just find out everything about her. Where she lives, how she survives, who she hangs out with. Everything. But she can't know it was me. Understood? She can't know. It'll be expensive. I don't care. I want daily reports. He hung up and finally left that spot. But instead of returning to the office, he drove aimlessly through the streets of Seattle, passing through neighborhoods he had never visited, seeing people he had never noticed. For the first time in decades, Robert Harrison felt something he had forgotten how to feel: fear of having lost what really mattered. And the question that tormented him was simple and devastating. Was it too late? The first reports from Marcus arrived 2 days later, and Robert read them compulsively in his office on the 40th floor of Harrison Tower. The panoramic windows offered a stunning view of Seattle, but he couldn't take his eyes off the printed pages. Preliminary report. Emma Claire Harrison, age 22 years old. Residence, apartment 3B, Riverside Building. Fremont District occupation, volunteer art teacher at the Ballard Community Center. Estimated income, not identified. No formal employment registered. Robert frowned. Volunteer. How did she pay the bills without income? The apartment in Fremont wasn't luxurious, but it wasn't cheap either. He continued reading. Observed routine, Monday to Thursday, teaches painting and sculpture classes to underprivileged children, 3 p.m., 7 p.m., Friday to Sunday, collects recyclable materials in various regions of the city, starting in the morning, ending at dusk. Transportation, old bicycle, occasionally public bus. He dropped the paper and rubbed his face. Volunteer teacher. Emma had always loved art. He vaguely remembered her painting as a child, although he had never really paid attention. Catherine always praised the drawings, hanging them on the refrigerator like trophies. Robert never understood why someone would waste time on something that didn't generate money. But now, looking at those cold and objective lines, he wondered what else he had missed. The phone rang. Marcus. I got more information. Can I come over? Come now. 20 minutes later, Marcus was sitting across from him, a manila envelope on the table. He was a middle-aged man, grey hair cut short, eyes that seemed to see through people. Robert, before I show you this, you need to understand something. Your daughter is not in danger. She's not involved with drugs, crime, or anything illegal. Then why is she picking through trash? Marcus opened the envelope and spread photos on the table. Emma in different locations, at the community center, smiling at children holding paintbrushes, on the street, pushing the cart, in a supermarket, buying rice and beans in large quantities. She's not picking through trash to survive, Robert. At least not for herself. What does that mean? I'm still investigating, but there's a pattern. Every Saturday afternoon after collecting, she goes to a junkyard on Industrial Avenue. She exchanges the recyclables for money. But she doesn't use that money for herself. Robert leaned forward. For whom then? I don't know yet, but I'll find out. After Marcus left, Robert was alone with the scattered photos. He picked up one of them. Emma smiling, covered in colorful paint, surrounded by children hugging her. When was the last time he had seen her smile like that? When was the last time he himself had truly smiled? He kept the photo in his suit pocket, close to the heart that was slowly beginning to awaken. A week passed like an agonizing blur. Robert cancelled meetings, delegated contracts, and did something he had never done: left the office early. He needed to see with his own eyes. On Saturday morning, he wore casual clothes, jeans and a discreet jacket, and followed the coordinates Marcus had sent. The junkyard was in a decaying industrial area, surrounded by abandoned warehouses and rusty train cars. He parked at a distance and waited. At 2:37 p.m., Emma appeared, pushing her loaded cart. Even from afar, Robert could see the determination in her steps. She didn't look ashamed or defeated. She looked determined. She entered the junkyard and came out 20 minutes later with a brown envelope in her hands. She carefully placed it in the worn backpack she carried. Robert followed her by car, keeping a safe distance. Emma caught a bus on Dearborn Street. He continued behind, his heart racing, feeling ridiculous and desperate at the same time. The bus stopped in Beacon Hill, a modest neighborhood. Emma got off and walked 3 blocks to an old 2-story building with worn brick walls and a discreet sign at the entrance. Sunset Gardens, residential home for the elderly. Robert parked, confused. A nursing home. What was Emma doing there? He waited 10 minutes before entering. The reception was simple but clean. A white-haired lady, perhaps around 70, was behind the counter, sewing something that looked like a towel. "Good afternoon. Can I help you?" She smiled warmly. I saw a young woman coming in here a little while ago. Brown hair, grey hoodie." "Oh, you mean Emma? She's an angel, that girl. She comes every Saturday to visit us. She brings donations, talks with the residents, plays guitar for them." The lady sighed with genuine affection. "I don't know what we'd do without her." Donations. The word echoed in Robert's mind like a bell. She donates money. She donates what she can, poor thing. I know she doesn't have much, but every penny helps. We're struggling to keep this place open. The government cut subsidies and many residents don't have family who can pay. Emma said she won't let this place close. She has a heart the size of the world. Robert felt his legs weaken. He leaned on the counter. "Are you okay, sir?" "Yes, thank you." He stumbled out, returned to the car, and simply sat there in shock. Emma wasn't picking up cans to survive. She was picking up cans to save that place, to help people she didn't even know. While he accumulated millions in bank accounts, she gathered pennies to sustain the dignity of strangers. And then he remembered. His mother, Emma's grandmother, had spent the last years of her life in a nursing home, a humble place, but full of humanity. Emma used to visit her every week when she was a teenager. He never went. He was always busy. The tears finally came, hot and relentless. There, alone in that absurdly expensive car, parked in front of a nursing home struggling to survive, Robert Harrison realized the devastating truth. He had everything, but he had nothing. Robert didn't go home that night. He drove aimlessly until the city lights became distant points in the rearview mirror. He stopped at a lookout in Mount Rainier National Park, where the immensity of the mountains made him feel small, perhaps for the first time in his life. He called Marcus. "I need you to find out everything about Sunset Gardens. Financial situation, debts, everything. And I want to know exactly how much Emma has donated." "I'm already on it," Marcus replied. "But Robert, can I give you some advice?" "Speak." "What are you planning to do? Show up with $1 million check and solve the problem, because something tells me your daughter won't like that." Robert was silent. Marcus was right. If he simply flooded the nursing home with money, Emma would know he had discovered it. She would feel invaded, watched, and worse. She would think he was trying to buy her forgiveness, as he always did. "Thank you, Marcus. Keep investigating." For 3 days, Robert lived in a fog. The reports arrived like pieces of a puzzle he was finally able to assemble. Sunset Gardens housed 28 elderly people, many without family or resources. It was 6 months behind on rent and about to be evicted. Emma donated an average of $300 a month, all the money she got from recycling. She also organized bazaars of donated clothes and asked for contributions on social media, always humbly, never mentioning her father's name. On the night of the 3rd day, Marcus called with information that changed everything. "Robert, I discovered something. Your mother, Dorothy Harrison, used to do volunteer work at Sunset Gardens. That's where she spent the last months of her life. Emma always accompanied her." Robert closed his eyes. Fragmented memories returned, his mother calling, asking him to visit. He always had a meeting, a flight, an important dinner. "Dorothy left a letter for Emma before she died," Marcus continued. "I got a copy through one of the staff members. Do you want me to read it?" "Yes." Marcus's voice became softer. "My dear Emma, you have the heart I always wanted your father to have. Don't let money harden you like it hardened him. Keep helping, keep loving, keep being light where there is darkness. And if one day your father wakes up, show him that value is not measured in dollars, but in gestures." With all my love, Grandma Dot. Robert collapsed in the chair, the phone slipping from his hand. Everything made sense now. Emma wasn't just honoring her grandmother's memory, she was living the legacy he had destroyed. And at that moment, a decision crystallized in his mind. It wouldn't be with money that he would win back his daughter. It would be with humility, with presence, with example. The next morning, Robert woke up early, put on old clothes he found at the back of the closet, and grabbed the keys to a car he rarely used, a 2010 grey Ford Fusion, discreet and common. He wasn't going to save the nursing home with a check. He was going to pick up cans. The first day was humiliating. Robert Harrison, accustomed to meetings in polished mahogany rooms and dinners at starred restaurants, found himself at 7 in the morning in front of an overflowing trash can on Capitol Hill. The smell of rotten food and sour beer made him instinctively recoil, but he thought of Emma. He thought of her doing this every weekend, without complaining, without wounded pride. He put on the rubber gloves he had bought at a convenience store and began. The first cans were at the bottom, mixed with dirty napkins and pizza leftovers. He picked them up one by one, placing them in a plastic bag. A homeless man passed by him and laughed. "First time, huh, brother? You still look scared." Robert just nodded, voiceless. For 3 weeks, he established a routine. Monday through Friday, he woke up at 6 a.m., wore simple clothes, and traveled through different neighborhoods of Seattle, collecting recyclables before going to the office. On weekends, he dedicated the entire day. He found a world he had never seen. He met Tom, a war veteran who lost his family in an accident and now lived under a bridge. He met Maria, a Mexican immigrant who picked up recyclables to supplement her cleaning salary. He met teenagers who did this to help their unemployed parents. Each story was a punch in the gut. Each face was a mirror of what he had ignored his entire life. And slowly, something inside him began to change. He started greeting the homeless by name. He bought hot coffee and sandwiches, distributing them discreetly. He listened to stories, truly listened, without looking at his watch or phone. One morning, while sorting plastic bottles in a park, an elderly lady sat down next to him. "You're different from the other pickers," she said, observing him with wise eyes. "You have soft hands, straight back. But there's something broken inside, isn't there?" Robert stopped, surprised by her perception. "I'm trying to fix it." "Well," she smiled, "the first step is to recognize. The second is to act. You're on the right path, son." At the end of a month, Robert had collected enough to exchange for $340 at the junkyard. It was nothing compared to what he earned in an hour of work. But it was everything. He put the money in an unmarked envelope, and with his heart pounding, left it in the mailbox of Sunset Gardens with a simple note, "To keep dignity alive," from someone who is learning what that means. That night, alone in his empty mansion, Robert looked at his own hands. They were calloused, with small cuts and stains that not even expensive soap could completely remove. And for the first time in decades, he felt real. But he still hadn't met Emma. And the question tormented him. When that happened, would she recognize him? Or worse, would she reject him again? It was a cloudy Saturday in November when it happened. Robert had been at Sunset Gardens for an hour, helping to fix the handrail on the external staircase. He had started making weekly visits to the nursing home, offering himself as a volunteer for repairs and maintenance. He always arrived when Emma wasn't there. Marcus kept him informed about her schedule. But that day, fate had other plans. He was tightening the last screw when he heard voices at the entrance. One of them made his heart stop. "Hi, Mrs. Margaret. I brought cookies I made last night, and I got a donation of blankets. They're in the cart." "Emma." Robert froze, the screwdriver still in his hand. He had only seconds to decide, hide or face it. Before he could move, she appeared in the doorway with boxes in her arms. Her eyes met his. Time stopped. The boxes slipped from Emma's hands, falling to the floor with a dull thud. Her face paled, then flushed with anger and disbelief. "You," she whispered, her voice trembling. "What are you doing here?" Robert stood up slowly, his legs wobbly. "Emma, No." She raised her hand, her eyes shining with furious tears. "No, you don't have the right. You don't have the right to show up here, in the only place that's mine, and—" Her voice broke. Mrs. Margaret appeared at the door, worried. "Emma, dear, is everything okay? This man," Emma pointed at Robert with a trembling finger, "is my father, and he only knows how to destroy things. Emma, please listen to me." Robert took a step forward. "I didn't come here to destroy anything. I came because I finally understood." "Understood what? How to show up with your money and fix everything, like you always did? Buy your way back into my life?" "No." Robert's voice was firm now. "I came to learn what you already know. I came to do what I should have done years ago." He showed his calloused hands, his nails stained with grease and dirt. Emma looked, confused. "I know about the cans, Emma. I know about the donations. I know about Grandma Dorothy and the promise you made to her. And I spent the last month on the streets, picking up recyclables, trying to understand, trying to be a piece of the person you are." Emma shook her head, tears streaming. "You're lying. You would never do that. You only care about money and—" "It was true," Robert interrupted her. "It was all true. But seeing you that day, picking up cans, thinking you were lost, broke me, Emma, woke me up. And I realized that the lost one was always me." He took the envelope from his pocket. It wasn't a check. It was the money he had earned from recycling, counted and saved for a month. "It's $340. Every penny I picked up, carried, exchanged. It's not worth anything compared to what you did, but it's real, it's honest, and I wanted you to know that I'm trying." Emma took the envelope with trembling hands, opened it, and saw the crumpled, dirty bills. She looked at her father, and for the first time in years, she saw something different, vulnerability. "Why now?" she whispered. "Why not when I needed you?" "Because I was a coward. Because it was easier to hide behind money than to face my mistakes. But Emma," his voice failed, "but I want to change, really. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for a chance." The silence weighed between them like a mountain. And then Emma took a step forward. Emma didn't hug him. Not at that moment. But she took a step forward and said something Robert never expected to hear. "Prove it." In the months that followed, Robert proved it. He continued picking up recyclables, but now alongside Emma. Father and daughter walked the streets of Seattle on weekends, talking gradually, rebuilding bridges that seemed destroyed forever. He listened to her stories about the college she had dropped out of to dedicate herself to social work, about the dreams she had of opening an art school for underprivileged children, about the pain she carried when he never showed up. And he told his stories too, about the emptiness that success had created, about the lonely nights in the immense mansion, about the desperation of seeing his daughter picking through trash and realizing he had completely failed as a father. It wasn't easy. There were arguments, tears, heavy silences, but there was something different now, true presence. One day, while sorting cans in a park, Emma looked at him and said, "Grandma Dot always said that value is not measured in dollars. She said that a truly rich person is one who can give without expecting anything in return. Not recognition, not gratitude, just gives." Robert nodded slowly. "Your grandmother was wise. I should have listened." "There's still time to listen now." Emma smiled for the first time. A genuine smile, small but real. 3 months later, Robert made a decision that would change everything. In a meeting with his company's board, he announced the creation of the Dorothy Harrison program, in honor of the mother he never valued enough. Every executive and employee of Harrison Enterprises would spend 1 day a month doing volunteer work at nursing homes, shelters, and community centers. "It's not corporate charity," Robert explained, his voice firm. "It's reconnection with the real world. It's remembering that our actions impact people, not just spreadsheets." The room fell silent. Some directors looked skeptical, but most nodded slowly. "And Sunset Gardens," Robert not only saved the nursing home with a donation that covered all debts, but created a permanent fund that would guarantee its operation indefinitely. But he made sure the donation was publicly anonymous because he learned that humility doesn't seek spotlights. At the inauguration of the nursing home renovation, Emma was there beside her father. She held a small painting she had made, one hand reaching out to another, both holding a crushed aluminum can. "It's about recycling," she said to the small audience of elderly people, volunteers and staff. "Not just trash, but people, relationships, chances. Everything can be transformed if there's true will." She looked at Robert, and he saw in her eyes something he hadn't seen in years: pride. That night, as they walked together to their cars, Emma held her father's hand for the first time since childhood. "Do you know what the most important word in this whole story is, Dad?" Robert shook his head. "Humility. That's what transformed everything. Not the money, not the social programs. It was you having the humility to come down from your pedestal and get your hands truly dirty. It was the humility to admit you were wrong, and it was the humility to learn from someone you always thought you should teach." Robert squeezed her hand, warm tears in his eyes. "You're right, and it was you who taught me that. You and your grandmother. The humility of those who give allows them to conquer much more than any fortune could buy," Emma continued. "Grandma Dot always said that. And now I see that you finally understood." They stopped under a streetlight, the city illuminated around them. Robert looked at his daughter, no longer the girl he ignored, but the extraordinary woman she had become despite him. "I wasted so much time," he said softly. "So many years chasing empty things." "But you woke up," Emma replied. "And that's what matters. It's not about where you were, Dad. It's about where you are now and where you're going from here." Months turned into years. The relationship between Robert and Emma flourished slowly but solidly. They never missed each other's birthdays again. He attended all her art exhibitions. She accompanied him on visits to the nursing homes he now personally supported. Catherine, the ex-wife, was surprised but genuinely happy to see the transformation. "I never thought you were capable of this," she told Robert one day. "But Emma has that power. She transforms people just by being who she is." "She inherited that from my mother," Robert admitted, "and I almost let that legacy die." The Dorothy Harrison program became a national model. Other companies began implementing similar initiatives. Executives who had never stepped foot in a shelter discovered the humanity they had forgotten, and Robert became an unexpected speaker, telling his story not with pride, but with the raw vulnerability of someone who almost lost everything that really mattered. One year after that first reunion at the nursing home, Emma took her father back to that same corner where it all began, where he first saw her picking up cans. "It was here," she said, looking around. "I always knew you might pass by here one day. Part of me hoped you would see, that you would wake up. And I saw, and I woke up." Robert looked at his own hands, still with the calluses he now wore with pride. "But it was almost too late." "It's never too late for humility," Emma smiled. "It's the only thing that truly transforms. Money builds buildings, humility builds souls." They stood there for a moment, father and daughter, two can collectors who had found something much more valuable than aluminum. They had found meaning. "Now tell me, did you manage to discover what the key word of this story is?" "Secret keyword, humility. Did you manage to discover the key word? Leave your answer in the comments. And if you're ready for the next story with its mysteries, subscribe to the channel and keep binge watching. This story reminds us that a person's true value is not in what they possess, but in what they give, not just with their hands, but with their heart. Thank you for staying until the end and for being part of this transformation journey.